Hey, it's Rod Yates. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey and the lessons they've learned. And my special guest today is Keli Holiday, also known as Adam Hyde from Australian electronic duo Peking Duk. So Kelly Holiday is a fictitious character created by Adam to channel a different side of his musical personality. While Peking Duk deal in high-energy, party-starting electronic music that regularly goes platinum and tops the charts in Australia, Keli Holiday is informed more by emotional introspection and the music of Joy Division and New Order. The idea for Keli Holiday came to Adam at the end of a 2-month US tour with Peking Duk, and once he committed to it, the music just poured out of him. That music is available on Keli Holiday's debut album, Kelly. But while Adam might have released the record under that name, this music is Adam Hyde at his rawest and most vulnerable, as he explains here.
The record Kelly was born at a very bizarre time in my life when I didn't really know where I was, who I was, or what I was doing to a degree. I was kind of just like not going through the motions at all, but just so burnt out from touring and the monotony and robotic nature of playing a show in a different city every day, running on no sleep, and at the same time trying to mend a inevitably disastrous relationship back in Australia while I was over in the States, which obviously just created, just mayhem, both in the mind and the emotions. And it was just I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, what's going on. But then, listening to records like New Order, Joy Division, for the first time in my life, they really spoke to me after having them played in my house when I was a kid by my dad. Back then I hated them, but then all of a sudden it all made sense.
Right.
Like this light bulb moment as I was looking out the back of the window of the van, looking over New York City. I was listening to a song called Your Silent Face by New Order. And I was overcame with so many emotions, like tears came to my eyes and I was like, oh my God. And in that moment I felt I need to get something out of me via music that I feel would be cathartic in a way, but it wasn't the intention going in. It just so happened that it turned out to be cathartic after, doing it all.
And so that moment when you're in the van, so you were still on tour with Peking Duk at that point, or that had finished? Or?
I was, yeah. I think that was like the second last show or something like that.
Okay. And did you decide to stay in New York after that?
No, so I was going to initially, but I decided to go back home because I just bought this shitty little guitar.
Right.
This terrible little brown guitar that I'd bought just before we went off on tour. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this music that I have in my head through that shitty guitar. So as soon as I got back to Sydney off the flight, immediately I went to my little shitty studio in my bedroom and started recording immediately. Like I grabbed a coffee and just started recording. And then as cliche and corny as it sounds, before it was like this blur, and then before I knew it, there were 12 demos there, and I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And that's so different from the process that, the way I normally do it with Peking Duk or with if I'm producing for anyone else or even writing for someone else. This was honestly just coming straight out of body, out of mind, splat onto the canvas type thing. And when I say canvas, I mean, it really felt like my, music software was just a canvas because everything was so rough and jagged and sketchy. But I guess in the end, it all kind of made for real and raw and authentic creations at the end of the day.
Yeah. Was it, somewhat confronting to once you had all those songs, just to listen back and I guess see what you'd been thinking and feeling in music and in words? Was it in any way, obviously cathartic, but was it confronting as well?
Dude, definitely. That's a great way to put it. That's like the perfect word to describe it. I remember listening back, being like, wow, I just did all that. Like, what is that? Like, I had like a day or two to kind of just like separate myself from it and be like, okay, this could be the worst stuff I've ever heard. I don't know what is this?
Right.
And then I remember listening back and I was really just like, oh God, like this is really not personal isn't the right word, but it's really vulnerable to the sense of like, it's very specific with a lot of its lyrics. One of the songs titled With You is written about my best friend that I lost to suicide. And, that day he sent me a text in the morning saying, bring my iPod headphones to school. And it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I was trying to make sense of that whole scenario via a song. And then I thought, fuck that. There's no point in trying to make sense of something that you can't change. Let's talk about how great this person was and how much you love this person. And then through that, I kind of went through different avenues of talking about other people in my life. And I guess that's kind of the running theme throughout the record is it's heartbreak mixed with happiness. And then like once I realized that's kind of the bigger picture of all these ideas, I was like, okay, this is like something that's important to me. I won't show it to anyone though.
Yeah.
And then I went over to my good friend, Golden Features, the producer. I went over to his house and I was playing him some demos. He was playing me some demos and he's like, what are you really working on? Because he's friends with my housemate at the time, and he was like, he said that you were working on some like Cure type stuff, and I was like,
right.
You don't want to hear that? And he's like, I do. And he really squeezed it out of me. He's like, come on, and I was like, okay, and I played it, and his jaw kind of dropped, and he was like, dude, do you know Kim from the Presets? And I was like, I don't know him personally, but I've looked up to him my entire life. And he's like,
sure.
Well, he just produced the DMA's record for Now, so let me put you guys in touch. I think Kim would love to work on this. And I wasn't even thinking about working on it with anyone, but, you know, shout out to my brother, Tom, Golden Features, for kind of like just sparking that, because then I was like, hey, you know, that actually sounds like something that could really be fun and something that I would really like to do. So let's do it. So he introed me to Kim, and the next day we went and got coffee and then just got in the studio the week after and started chipping away all the jagged bits and all the sketchy bits, tried to like shape it up, and then I guess what you hear is the effects of all that.
That's a really interesting thing, the fact that you were writing these songs not really thinking that anyone would hear them. That's got to give you a certain creative freedom that perhaps if you'd gone to Tom before you started writing these songs and said, hey, I'm going to work on this project, do you think it gave you a freedom that you perhaps wouldn't have got if you'd done it the other way around?
Oh man, 100%. And that's perfectly said. You're amazing, because I've wondered what the main characteristic, I guess it was, or what the main catalyst was for this whole different world of the process of creativity with this project. And I guess that's it. That's exactly it, man. You nailed it. The fact that there was no expectations, you know, obviously with Peking Duk, we're so lucky to have been on this run, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like every single that we drop tends to go platinum or multiple times platinum, which is incredible and insane and mind-blowing to me, because that's never the idea going into it. But it just happens that it kind of, Peking Duk's music kind of has that effect and this beautiful synonymous relationship with Australiana and all that is the Aussie dance party vibe. And with that comes a lot of like, okay, we're in the studio to write a song. We know this is going to get heard by a lot of people, you know, and that automatically the box gets smaller. You know what I mean? So I guess, you're right. This was kind of open world, like Zelda. I was just running through the woods, picking berries and riding horses along the way.
Nice. You mentioned the song With You before, which is obviously a very personal song. Why do you think now was the time for that to come out of you? Because I take it that your friend passed away while you were still at school. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. We were 17, and he was my best friend. James was his name. And yeah, man, it never gets easier. You know, you just kind of like learn to deal with it, I guess. And it's something that, you know, it was just a huge bombshell at 17 years old. I don't think anyone can really prepare themselves for that. And that's the worst thing about suicide, right? It just literally comes out of nowhere. It shows no warning signs. And, you know, he was obviously going through a lot, but didn't show any of it. And that made me think a lot about, you know, how fragile we all are as people in general. Like everybody kind of puts on a front, and that's not to blame anyone for doing so, but everybody's got that fragility at their core, and we're all just people. And I think that the more I delved into that, the more I thought, well, fuck, you know, I guess my path or career or whatever you want to call it in life is music. Why don't I talk about what's really keeping me up at night? You know what I mean? And that was definitely one of the things that still, as a 30-year-old man, keeps me up at night, you know. And it's like, I may as well write about it. I think now's definitely the time. And when I did, I remember showing it to his twin brother, Andrew, and that was just the beautiful moment of being like, hey, like I made this song about James. I'd love you to hear it. And it meant the world to him. And I'm sure it means the world to James, wherever he may be. I know he's still with me. So,
yeah,
it just felt right to do it.
Nice. And it was important to get his brother's, I don't know if approval is the right word, but at least a nod.
Yeah, definitely a nod, because James, who passed away, he was really a firm believer in the fact that both myself and Ruben could go and reach for the stars with music. He'd always be like, man, you guys are stars, like you're going to kill it. And he got us into a lot of electronic music especially. So I know that like he'd be so proud of me and Ruben and everything that we're doing now. So every day I kind of, have a little chat to him in my head and just give him a little fist bump, because I know he's definitely guiding us along the way, which is great.
Yeah, nice one. So in terms of, clearly a very personal record, the idea to call it Kelly Holiday as opposed to Adam Hyde, did that persona, did that give you a step removed from, you could be very personal, but just still retain a little bit of yourself by not calling it Adam Hyde?
Dude, I think yet again, you've nailed it. Like, I've never thought about it like that as well. You're an amazing interviewer, I must say. So thank you for letting me chat with you. This is nice.
No, pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, that's totally why. I've had a lot of people ask me that, but I haven't known how to articulate it. I guess that's exactly it, what you said. It's kind of like, I remember talking to someone, I was like, yeah, maybe I do this project just under Adam Hyde. And then I was like, well, this is coming from like this place inside me that's like, it's kind of like the male ego, like, super fragile. And like, a lot of the songs I'm talking about how everything's fine, like this person's off my mind, but the irony is I'm actually writing a song about them.
Right.
So they're far from off my mind.
Yeah.
And the character that is Kelly Holiday, you can see in the music videos and at the live show. Like tonight I'll be bringing Kelly out in full force. It's like this flamboyant macho man that you can tell is just so fragile. And I think that's kind of the beauty of it. Like the December music video is Kelly Holiday out in the woods, kind of on a vacation, a holiday by himself, doing all the things he would be doing with this person that he's singing about, but he's just by himself.
Right.
And I think, kind of having Kelly Holiday as that character and as the front man, which is also me.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of the day, it's just me kind of being able to go, let's say some crazy shit, and it's all on Kelly. It's not on me. Even though it is on me, and I am Kelly, and Kelly is me. Right. So I don't know. It's a funny thing but I think you've hit it on the head, brother. I think it's just a way to kind of separate it, even though it's all one and the same.
Sure. And you were talking earlier about Joy Division and New Order and how your dad used to play that when you were growing up. What other sort of music were you exposed to in the household?
Man, a lot. Thanks to my mum and dad. My mum was always playing the Stones, a lot of Rolling Stones. My dad was always playing Lou Reed and Velvet Underground. It's so interesting to me now at the age I'm at, because I'm just, I've realized in the last 5 or 6 years just how dope and influential and incredibly important all of these bands are, especially Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. But as a kid, just sitting there going, oh, man, this is so lame. But it's the complete opposite. It's like the greatest shit in the world. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So now I sit there and listen to those records with my jaw on the floor, just going, wow, like, whoa, this is so ahead of its time. And like, it's funny that, and I think a big part of that is the fact that I was exposed to such great music at a young age. But even though it went over my head, it was definitely still coming in my ears and and being absorbed subconsciously. And I think that happens to everyone. So I think if any parents out there are listening, definitely play music to your kids, because it'll come around one day or another.
Were they musical at all, your parents, or were they just fans?
My dad played the clarinet. He would always play the clarinet. Right. And it was like wild. Like, I'd just be like, dude, that is not it. But he loved it. He played gamelan recently for a while. Right. Like the
What's
Indonesian,
that?
It's the Indonesian instrument. It's like the actual gamelan itself is it's a cacophony of instruments, a big band of sounds. Really, really beautiful sounds, actually. A lot of, like, I guess, because he'd always play Brian Eno as well. And I hear a lot of gamelan energy in a lot of the ambient stuff that Eno does. But yeah, no, not my mum. So my mum just loves music. Like my mum loves music, and I love that so much about her. Is the fact that like anytime I go see her now, because my parents have split for quite a while now, but anytime I go back home to Canberra to see her, straight away she'll have music playing in the kitchen and she'll be dancing just by herself, and it's like that's the shit. You know what I mean? Like for myself to be so deeply enveloped in like this world of just like creating music and always hearing other people's music, and it's great. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But to be able to step back and see someone like my mother dancing in her living room or kitchen to music simply for the sake of just hearing the music and just like vibing to it.
Yeah.
That's something so pure, and that's the reason why we all love music, right? You know, and that kind of like makes me realize I'm doing the right thing here. I'm doing the right thing for sure. I'm in the right field.
Nice. And you mentioned Canberra, and I'm really interested in your experiences growing up in Canberra because I grew up in Canberra. And
shit. Whereabouts?
In Red Hill.
Sick.
Where were you?
I grew up in Ainsley.
Ainsley, right, near the city.
Dude, I actually worked as a tea and bicky boy at an old person's home in Red Hill. Dude, it was crazy. I was like serving up tea and bickies for all the old people with dementia and stuff, and it was incredible. It was probably the best job to date I've ever had. Better than being a DJ, that's for sure.
How old were you when you did that?
I would have been freshly 18.
Okay.
Because I remember going out to the clubs and then going to work straight from the clubs, which in hindsight was not the wisest thing, but in a way it was, because I had these conversations with so many of the lovely old people there that we'd sit down and just talk for hours. And they just wanted someone to talk to. And I was a young 18-year-old that didn't know up from down. So I wanted to, it was at that age where you kind of really start trying to observe and absorb as opposed to just barking and not taking anything in. Like, I am the ruler, you know, fuck authority and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's kind of like, oh, maybe I should listen. So it was an important time in my life and a very fun time. And the manager at that place was crazier than me. He'd be like smoking spliffs out the back. And it was wild, but it was great. Shout out to Canberra.
Nice. What do you remember? I mean, being 18 and being around dementia patients and observing what they're like and observing old people, as you just said, what did you learn? What did you take away from those experiences, do you think?
Man, it's a great question. I think like, I don't know, man. I was so young at the time that I was, like I said, I wasn't taking too much in, but looking back on it now, it makes you realize that we're, as corny as it sounds, we're all just people trying to find our way. You know, like even if you're 90 years old and on the brink of dementia, you're still trying to find your way in a sense. You know, you never reach this destination of like, oh, now I'm done. You know what I mean? It's always the human world and the human game of like just trying to make sense of it all, or even just, I don't know if trying to make sense of it all is the right way to say it. Like, I don't know. People just always want someone to chat to. People always need someone there. And I think I took that out of it. And like, that's a really beautiful thing to think about, and a really sad thing because a lot of people don't have that, you know, but if you can, it made me think, hey, if I can provide that for anyone at any given time, I will. And since working at that job, I've genuinely made a point to go out of my way to talk to anyone and everyone at any given time, whether I'm on a bus or a train or a plane or whatever. Like, I'll be the one who goes up and talks to people if I feel like, hey, maybe they could do with some company in that moment. And there's been so many times where that's gone such a long way.
Right.
And like, you know, I'm not like a firm believer or superstitious, like, or a firm believer in karma so much, but those kind of things, I don't know, there's a certain energy that's let off in the air when these interactions with strangers or, you know, these important moments kind of happen from the most simplest conversations that are really special and magical. And it's almost like those little moments are the spark of life and humanity, you know, kind of like, you know, a good example is like Lost in Translation, that film by Sofia Coppola. Like, what is it that makes that film so special? Is it the fact that it's so human? I guess that probably is what makes it so special. It's got this beautiful element of humanity to it all. it's not like this crazy story and there's a million things going on. It just kind of goes like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the human experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, nice.
I mean, there's definitely ups and downs along the way, but it's kind of like just the simplicity of it all, I think, is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So rewind a few years from that point. So you grew up, you're listening to your parents' music, which you're just not getting at all. At what point do you start to form your own opinions about music and start to find your artists that you do like? And how did you do that?
Oh man, that started early. That started young. Like I was listening to the Ramones and the Sex Pistols at actually that's one thing that my dad and I shared in common. He would always play the Clash. And he likes the Sex Pistols as well, but
okay.
I was like a young skater rat that was just listening to the Ramones and the Sex Pistols from like 12,
right?
Which is insane to even think about today. I'm like, wait, I was 12 years old listening to the Sex Pistols. Like, what?
Nice.
And like listening to NWA and shit like that. But when everything really shifted, I remember there was a pivotal moment when I was, I think I was 14 or 15. I was at school and a friend of mine named John Foley, he ran up from behind me and he put these earphones in my ear and he was playing Wu-Tang Clan, Ain't Nothing to Fuck With, really loud. Right. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is this sound? It's so raw and just primal. I was like, what is this? This is crazy. And from then I fell in love with Wu-Tang, but more so just the ethos that Wu-Tang kind of encapsulates, which is not DIY, but like there's no rules to the shit. You can kind of do it however you want. And if you think it sounds good, then fuck it, run with it. You know what I mean? And I think that was a big moment for sure. So I'd say from about, 12 onwards, I was just constantly diving into music. But then from 15 onwards, I really, really got into rap music. A lot of Dr. Dre, a lot of like Wu-Tang stuff, Snoop Dogg, Exhibit. That was like the heyday of Eminem and that whole thing. And then I really got into metal, like Megadeth, Pantera, Metallica, Slayer, Motorhead, all that kind of stuff. And like the glam rock side too, like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue was always fun.
Sure.
And AC/DC, of course. That was my first true love. I must confess. AC/DC Live, that album, I used to just play that on repeat.
At Donington, absolutely.
Oh, man.
So
I listened to that the other day and I was just like, what? This is crazy. It's insane. Like, there is no band in the world that sounds as big as that and as good as that.
Such a good show. And I love the fact that some of that is still crept into Kelly Holiday. You reference Motorhead in the song, Where You Feel, I think it is. So you're still pulling that, even though sonically it's a world away. It's still in your psyche.
It's still there, 100%. It always will be. Rest in peace to Lemmy. Lemmy could never leave anyone's mind after they've learnt about that man.
That's it. So you hear Wu-Tang, and because I know you were singing, you had like hip hop collectives in Canberra, and you were rapping, and you were part of this. Was that the light bulb moment for you? Did you instantly start rapping yourself, and form a collective? Yeah,
it's kind of funny because I was kind of like rapping and just having fun, and just like me and my friends would just rap and freestyle and stuff. And then I met two guys named Will Malazani and Phil, I can't remember his last name actually, who really wanted to rap. Like they were like, dude, we want to be rappers. Like we want to do this. And I was like, all right, cool. I kind of know how to use GarageBand. I'll throw instrumentals into GarageBand and you can rap on them and I'll record you. So we started doing that at school. And I think that was in year 11, which is, I would have been 17 then. No, I was 16 then because I was 1 year out from I was 16 then. And shout out to John Tucker, the music teacher at Dixon College. He gave us so much freedom to create, even when he knew that we wouldn't go to school, like we'd wag school and stuff like that. But he saw something in us, including Ruben as well from Peking Duk. He really nurtured whatever it was that was in us, and also in Will Malazani and Phil. And he loved what we were doing, even though all the other teachers hated it because they thought we were just little rat bags, which I'm sure we were to a degree, but there was something there. And I think, that's why it's so important to have great teachers and people that figures in those early formative years that can really help elevate that kid's expression, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that's what that teacher did for us. So shout out to John Tucker. But yeah, we were doing like rap stuff, and then I don't know. Then there was a friend of ours named Tom Croft who gave Ruben and I this blank CD with like Fidget House records on it, like Bloody Beetroots, Crookers, Fake Blood, all these producers that were just crazy. And like, we were like, whoa, what is this? So immediately me and Ruben really took a shining to that and started trying to recreate that kind of stuff. And then the rap stuff kind of fizzled a bit because Will got in a bit of trouble, and so did Phil actually. But they're okay now, thank God. But yeah, so life kind of happened, and then before we knew it, the Peking Duk thing kind of kicked off, I guess, and we were DJing around the country, and then we started selling records, I guess.
We have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we'll be back shortly with more from Adam Hyde. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Adam Hyde, also known as Kelly Holiday. Your relationship with Ruben, your other half in Peking Duk. Did you both meet at Dixon College? Where did you actually meet?
So we met at the skate park in Civic Skate Park in Canberra.
Skate Park.
Yeah. We met at the skate park, and he came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, you're Adam." And I was like, "Yeah, you're Ruben. I've heard a lot about you." And then we started talking, and we realized we were dating the same girl at the same time. At the exact same time. We were like, holy hell, that's funny. And immediately, like, when you meet someone and you just kind of know, like, this is going to be my guy for a while.
Yeah.
And it was that. Ever since that day, we just started kicking it. And then I was at Darren at that time because I was in high school.
Right. And
then they very politely asked me to leave the school.
Did they? Why?
Oh, I was a bit of a rat bag. I got suspended once for me and Will Malazani, my friend. We wrote a rap song that had quite vulgar lyrics, and the teacher got a hold of it, and that was like strike one. And then I think there was one time we were smoking weed at school. That was strike two, and I think by strike two, they'd already kind of ushered us out the door. And then the final straw was them kind of just being like, okay, I think this place isn't for you, which, that's cool, whatever. But it worked out great because then I was like, cool, I can go to Dixon College now, just around the corner. So went there, and that's where Ruben was as well. And that really like solidified our bond. And that's where it all started for us.
Nice.
I guess on this journey that we're on.
Yeah. So you've heard Crookers, you've heard Bloody Beetroots, you've started messing with Reason in about 2010. What was do you remember the first song that the two of you wrote?
Oh man, you've done your research as well. Whoa. Yeah, dude, I'm trying to remember what we called it. Oh, I remember how it sounds. I'll try find a bounce of it.
Really?
And send it to you. I'll try find it. I reckon me or Ruben will have a bounce. But, oh, man, what was it called? I think it was called Duck, like just Duck.
Okay.
Like, with like 50 Ks. Like Duck. And it was so bad. But to be fair, the fundamentals, the foundations of it were there. All the foundations resembled what could be a good electro track in 2009 or 10 or whenever it was.
And it doesn't matter that it's bad. It's a start, right?
Exactly.
Everyone's bad at the beginning. There's just that moment of pushing through and keeping at it and getting better, which I think is so important.
That's it. 100%. Yep.
One of the key turning points seems to have been the bootleg remix you did of Passion Pit's Take a Walk. What was that like when you that started to cut through? How did that impact you, and what did you start feeling?
Oh, that was just such a trip, such a bizarre thing, seeing this validation from the internet, kind of just like this overwhelming validation from the internet suddenly just happened, literally overnight. Like we put it up on our SoundCloud, we'd send it to a couple blogs, and at that time there was a website called Hype Machine, which I'm sure you know. It was like a chart of what songs are getting the most blog attention. It started just going up, that chart, like from the next day. And we were like, whoa, this is bizarre. And then we kept looking at the SoundCloud plays, And every 3 hours, Ruben came over to my house. Every 3 hours, it was going up like by 50,000. And
Wow.
we were just like, whoa. And it was just like this monster that just happened over. And like looking back on that time, it's so bizarre and so magical at the same time. Like just seeing these numbers tick up. But then, you think about the effect that had and on the trajectory of our career is just massive. So it really gave us a stepping stone to then do our own originals, I guess, to like really start pushing our own original music. And that's what we did.
Yeah. You mentioned you got validation from the internet. Prior to that point, had you been getting validation from home and from those around you, or were you kind of having to push to just prove to people that you could actually do this?
We knew how to throw a party. We knew how to party. We knew how to rock a party behind the decks.
Right.
But that was about it. You know what I mean? I don't think that anyone was really thinking beyond that when they thought of us, nor were we thinking beyond that too much as the dudes in the driver's seat. So I think when that happened, it was kind of like, oh, this is what we want to do. Now that we've kind of got this like, little golden star tick of approval, then like, hey, let's go for it. Let's grip and rip, baby.
Yeah. Was there a scene in Canberra at the time?
There actually was a great scene. Shout out to Hugh Foster and Frankie Tapia. Frankie's actually still running parties in Canberra. There was a club called Lot 33. There was also Trinity Bar, Academy. And Lot 33 especially you'd have people like Deadmau5, Skrillex come through there just to play secret sets. And like
wow.
There'd be a line around the corner. It was in Kingston and it was a tiny room, but it would just go off. And there was something so cool about the electro scene around the world at that time.
Yeah.
It was kind of niche, but it wasn't. And it felt so just cool. I think it spoke to everyone around the age groups from 17 through to, 33 in that era, like 2005 to 2011.
Yeah.
It was just this crazy era of music, not even only from an electronic point of view. That's when Kanye was doing, I think, some of his greatest stuff. And it was just this shift in culture that it felt amazing. And to be at that age in that time, I'm super thankful for.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting for people to understand what Canberra is like in terms of that context, because Canberra has a reputation as very public service, quite kind of dull. But if you know where to look, you can find these scenes. And some of the music that's come out of Canberra over the decades has been phenomenal, but you've got to know where it is.
Yeah, you got to find it. You got to dig deep. Canberra's a weird place, man. Really weird place. But as of late, there's been so many great artists come out of that. Genesis Owusu,
yeah,
Safia. There's so many dope people. Also great painters like Jess Cochran, Luke Chiswell. But yeah, it's funny, man, because like they'd hit that point where we were like, all right, Ruben's like, hey, I'm gonna go to Sydney, and if we want to do something with this music stuff, you got to come with me. And I was like, what? Okay, so I jumped on a bus and we moved to Sydney and had no money at all and fought over Megarang for a year, and then.
What do you mean you fought over Megarang?
We would get in fist fights over who would get the Megarang. Like we had nothing, and we were borrowing rent money off Cairo, our housemate, and Thomas, who is Golden Features.
Right.
We paid them back, of course, now, but yeah, we had nothing, and then so it hit a point where we're like, all right, we need to get a job. And I remember the day that I walked down to this cafe near the place we were staying at in Kensington to hand in my resume. I handed it in. Then I'm walking back and I got a phone call and it was like, dude, Triple J are playing The Way You Are, which was a song that I just made like 3 weeks prior, and we just put it on the internet and it was an original. Yeah. And then like, it was just like, whoa, hectic. And that really got things moving for us. And then from there, we were able to sustain money from gigs, just enough to pay the rent and like kind of navigate our way through. And it led through to, I guess, wherever Peking Duk is now,
Yeah. Was that an exciting time? Because, at the beginning of our chat, you were talking about, I guess, being at the tail end of that 2-month US tour with Peking Duk and you were tired. But when you think back to those early days, when you get your first song on Triple J, like the national youth broadcaster, that must have been such an exciting time.
Oh, yeah. It was insane. The funny thing is that Ruben's like he grew up on Triple J. I didn't grow up on it, like, but he really did. So to him, he was just like, this is massive. And I know now how massive that is. Obviously, Triple J are incredible. The way they push new music and push new artists is so important. But at the time, I was like, oh, that's sick. That's cool. Okay. But I guess, I got to keep working. Like, I got to, this isn't the be all and end all. And it definitely wasn't at all. But the trajectory that kind of threw us on from there, again, it was just another one of those stepping stones that helped us, I guess, try and go to the next place forward, as opposed to just kind of staying in the same realm of just playing for, a room full of dudes on ecstasy.
And for people who are outside of Australia to understand Triple J, it's basically Australia's only national radio station. Very influential. Like, if you get a song on Triple J, then you're on your way to having a national audience. So it's a huge moment. So you've got The Way You Are on there, and then High comes and Take Me Over. Big songs, big hits. What do you think you hit on? Like, what was the recipe that you hit on that brought that success?
I think it was the emotion in the actual music itself. It feels very melancholic yet euphoric. And I think that's something that hadn't been touched on too much in electronic music at that point. Obviously, people like Moby had been doing it. Flume had just started dropping his stuff. Shout out to Harley. He's a legend. He really helped us out in those early years. And I think, it was just kind of like, it was kind of like a song. Like High, for example, is like a song. It wasn't like a DJ track. It felt like a song, like an electronic ballad in a weird way that had emotion, but it was uplifting emotion, but it was also really sad emotion and euphoric and melancholic. And, it kind of brought everything under one umbrella. And the message of the song itself of, being able to let something go and then feeling better for it, I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. So I don't know, I guess at that time in the world or whatever was going on, especially in Australia, it just kind of, I think everything's about timing, and I think the timing of that one was bang on, and it really resonated with everyone.
Yeah. And so an international audience starts to open up to you, and this thing that you started in Canberra is now your career, and it's taking you overseas. Were you ready for that? Like, what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make to thinking, this is actually our job now, this isn't a hobby?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everything happens not so quickly at all. Nothing's overnight, but it's like that thing of like, you set a goal, and then by the time that you complete the goal, you've already got another 10 goals in your head. I think that whole thing kind of happened where it was like, wow, like we're living off this now. That's all that we've ever wanted. That's the dream. But then once you have that, you're thinking about the next thing. So you're so preoccupied thinking about the next thing. You're not really sitting there and smelling the roses. And there's definitely been times where we've stopped and smelled the roses and said, this is incredible that we've been able to sustain a 12-year career in the music industry. Like, that alone is insane. But there was a wild ride. Like that after we dropped High, those next like 3 or 4 years, it was just crazy. It was just like go. And it was so much fun. But I think a lot of that then led to kind of just being like, okay, time to kind of take stock. Who am I? What am I doing? And that's kind of, I guess, where the birth of Kelly started in my mind.
Yeah. Just before we get back to Kelly, you mentioned that idea of smelling the roses. And you look at some of the achievements in your career, playing Coachella in 2015, recording the song Distant Arizona in Mumbai. Like, these incredible things that you've been able to do. Were you actually able to sit back and go, we've come a long way from Dixon College?
Man, that made me so happy you saying that. Oh, I could cry right now with happiness. That was so beautifully put, because I've never heard it put like that, nor thought about it like that. Especially the Mumbai reference. What a time. Right. Yeah. Oh man, there's been times where me and Ruben have grabbed each other and shed a little tear on each other's shoulder, because it is really like, damn, how the fuck are we here right now? Being in some crazy rooms and situations where it's just like, what are we doing here? This is a meant to happen type thing, to two young idiots from Canberra. But I guess that Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say that like what springs to mind when you think about those situations, those rooms that you're in, like what's in your head as you say that?
I just think of like, I guess it's imposter syndrome to a degree. It's just kind of like, man, what are we doing here? You know, like, but then, there's also moments where we're like, yeah, we're the shit. Like, we got this. We know, that's, I guess what being a creative is. It's all part of the process of like loving yourself, hating yourself, and everything in between. But there's been so many moments where we just give each other a hug and just go, whoa, this is wild. Let's soak this in right now because, these moments like this never happen. So we should be lucky that we've even got a second of it, let alone however many years it's been,
Yeah, all those fights over meat goreng were worth it.
Definitely, 100%.
One thing I've always thought about you is that you're renowned for bringing the party. You're renowned for fun. But at some point when the gig's over and the crowd's gone away, there is a come down to that. Have you ever had to deal with that in your career, that idea that, you have this reputation as the party guys, but there is also a come down to that you have to come to terms with and go through?
100%, man. 100%. And yeah, like it's that thing of like, it's really hard to come off stage from playing to like 60,000 people and then like you walk off stage and it's like, how do you it's like if you go for a 20K run or something, you can't just stop and be like, okay, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you need something to kind of bring you back down a bit or just kind of slowly let you down. And, if you have to go straight back to a hotel and go to sleep onto the next flight at 7 a.m., or be up at 7 a.m. to get onto the next flight to the next city and do it all again, you do that over and over and it's like, why would I even sleep? Let's party. Because you're on this high, and you're like, let's have a drink, let's party, let's dance, let's go out. This person wants us at their bar. They're going to lock in the bar for us. Like, let's do that. All that kind of stuff is so tempting and so much fun. But like you said, after a while, you're just like, oh man, like I'm really not feeling my best. So I should probably do something about that. So, and I think, as I was sitting in the back of that van in New York, looking out the window, that was a real turning point for me creatively, but also just like, mentally for what I wanted to do and how I wanted to take care of myself moving forward. So I just kind of like, ever since that day, I've started picking my battles as opposed to going to war every night, and just like taking care of my mind and body as much as I can, because I've realized that, we've only got it once as far as we know. So best to try and take care of it where you can.
Yeah.
But I think it's all part of growing up as well, like if you're like, we were young, like touring around playing clubs and stuff. It's like, of course, two young dudes are just going to go crazy and party. It makes sense. We weren't we weren't raised Christian boys. We weren't like morally too wound tight. So it was just kind of like, okay, let's just party. But after a while, obviously you learn, and I think the more that time goes on, I've learned so much more about how important it is to take care of yourself, your mind and your body, and the people around you. Because like we were even talking about before, everyone's fragile and everyone's different. Some people's tipping point could be here and other ones could be here. So it's like, and you just got to be wary of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Are there certain techniques that you've developed?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, lately I won't even drink during shows. But that's a lie, actually, because lately I'll have a drink. Like, I try to time it. So it's like first drink can only be at least 30 minutes prior to going on stage.
Okay.
And then it's like, okay, if you have an early flight in the morning, you can have a drink afterwards, but that's it. But don't go crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's actually like brought a lot of stability to my routine and lifestyle in general.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we used to party literally every day of the week. So it was like, dude, that's not sustainable whatsoever. So now it's like, okay, even like, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like getting off on the finer things in life, such as just like good company and some good food.
Sure.
As opposed to who can drink the most tequila in the shortest amount of time, who can jump up on the bar and try to a head spin, like stupid shit like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Fun stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I get your point. So is it true that you've got Kelly Holiday album number 2 in the bag?
Yeah, it's not fully in the bag yet, but I've got the blueprint sonically all ironed out. So I'm hoping to get in the studio ASAP with some producers. I got my eye on a few people that I want to work with for this one. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't say anything yet because none of it's locked in. But
Sure.
you'll be the first to know because it's very exciting if it does happen. But album 2 is ready to go, and yeah, like this is just the beginning of Kelly Holiday. So
That's awesome.
I'm excited, man. I've got a lot more music to give and a lot more live shows to throw. So it's
Nice.
good times.
And Ruben has got his project as well, YOGA, Yoga. What do you think when you two return to Peking Duk full time? And I know Peking Duk is still very much a going concern and you've released music this year, but do you think these experiences outside of Peking Duk will impact the music that you and Ruben make together?
Totally. I think it's just important to have different avenues and outlets as a creative. And like I was saying before with Peking Duk, it's like we've written by now over, 6 albums worth of material. But it's not all exactly cohesive enough to slap on a record and, make it a good album, so to speak. So it's like if you're writing in a single mindset, like, oh, this has to be a single, this has to be a single, it totally changes the creative process. But Ruben's a real creative at heart where he just wants to experiment, as I'm sure you've heard with the yoga stuff. It's like psychedelic cowboy music, which is amazing. And it's like he wouldn't be able to explore that and really see it through if there weren't an avenue such as yoga. So when I approached him and said, hey, I want to do this side project, he jumped for joy and was like, dude, I really want to do one as well. Perfect. And then since then, every time that we've gotten in the studio together to work on Peking Duk stuff, it's been magical. It's been awesome. And I think it's actually been far more productive in a sense. Like we kind of know what we're in there for now and what we want to do. So it's been great.
Nice one. Adam, just before we finish up, Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. Are there people you'd give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Oh, man. Shout out to Jaxsta for giving credit. Credit's important. There's so many people, man. So many people. My mom, my dad, every barista in every city I've been to that gives me a coffee and gives me a smile with it. I think anyone who... I was talking to this houseless or homeless person, however you'd like to say it, in Venice Beach where I lived the other day, and we just started talking, and I was telling him how I make music and told him all about Kelly Holiday and stuff, and like showed him the video, and he was chatting, and he's like, man, you really got it in you, like you can really do it. And I was feeling really shitty that day and really down, but this guy flipped my mood around and made me feel like I could do it. So, if that dude can instill that kind of inspiration within me, then there's a lot of hope for the world. And I think we should all give credit to the world a little more because it can be a beautiful place if we try hard enough.
Yeah, nice. I guess that comes back to what you were talking about earlier, just those conversations with strangers.
Yep.
They can make a big difference.
There you go, 100%. We've come full circle, baby.
There was one more thing which I'd forgotten to ask you about, and it's about in that song with you. I think you reference Hackett, the suburb of Hackett, in that song.
Yeah.
Which I think is wild because, again, coming from Canberra, I can't think of any songs that reference Canberra landmarks. You think about American artists, they'll reference American suburbs and neighborhoods and landmarks, and it's just part of the people expect that, and it sounds great. Yeah. Not that many artists have referenced a lot of Australian stuff until relatively recently. Yeah. And no one's referenced Canberra. Yeah. Like the suburb of Hackett, you've put it on the map.
Dude, it's got to be done. It's got to be done. The Hackett drains, man.
What did you do there?
Oh, smoked a lot of weed and just listened to a lot of music and just hung out. It was a getaway. It was a place where the teachers couldn't see us until they could. And then it was big trouble. But it was fun while it lasted.
Nice. Adam, man, thank you so much for your time. It's been so great to chat with you.
Dude, thank you so much. That was really, really fun. It's a pleasure to be on here. And you're a legend, man. I really appreciate it.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to Adam for his time, and thank you for listening. Just a reminder that Kelly Holiday's new album, Kelly, is out now. If you have any feedback on the show or suggestions on who you'd like me to interview, or even if you just want to say hello, please drop me a line at humansofmusic@jaxsta.com. That's humansofmusic, one word, at Jaxsta, JAXSTA.com. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to Jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.